points, but breaking them are specifically what you're designed to do.
That's why some people say young entrepreneurs have an advantage over the older ones. The older ones can more easily build a business, but they have a harder time with the breakthrough disruptive business, where younger people have an easier time with disruptive. So you find that?
Yeah, I totally. But I think it's more around the perspective of we just don't know what the limits are, right? Because we haven't experienced a slap on the wrist. We don't necessarily see barriers that typically end up being. Usually, what happens is people who are more experienced are they mistake a particular setback as something that they contributed to, right? So they go, oh, I must have caused this thing.
I'm back. Did you just miss me?
Just not going to happen, right? But at the end of the day, the world is constantly changing. So all the assumptions that you made in the beginning should actually be reassessed every time you're trying to push the envelope. And the funny thing is with technology, like you said, in 3 months, it's like years, that's even more so the case now. And that's also, it's interesting. It leads to how we are perceived, and I'm talking about the younger entrepreneur, in business meetings and in presentations, is we're actually now expected to be the ones with the answers. It's actually quite frightening in some cases. Is I'm walking into meetings now, and they want me to be the one who goes off on a limb and says crazy stuff. It's actually like the expectation. And,
it was like that in Web 1.0.
Yeah.
It was worse in Web 1.0 because the internet was new. So in Web 1.0, which was now 20 years, almost going on 18 years ago, 3 or 4 years old, in 96, 97, people didn't even know what the internet was. So when you were coming in, they're like, what's going to happen? Like, tell me what's going to happen. How is the internet going to destroy my business?
Exactly. And I think now it's like, I'm glad it's a little bit more orderly. I think there are sort of this faith being put in the right people, I think. But at the same time, I think younger entrepreneurs need to take heed and understand that you need to know what has happened, learn history, because history does repeat itself.
Right.
And I think someone said that it rhymes, right? So I think it's like, it doesn't exactly look exactly the same.
But there's themes.
There's themes. And so you need to know what those themes are. And you can't, like, ignorance in this case is just not bliss. Like, you need to know sometimes, because you'll see sometimes it's going to be a big train that you just don't see coming, just slamming into you. And that's what happens sometimes to companies that end up just all of a sudden overnight, like, what happened? They just didn't know.
It's like Built to Last. I don't know if you ever read Built to Last, which is the follow-up to Good to Great. It's like, what are the businesses, the paranoid businesses that survive through? Because most of the businesses that do get killed and disrupted, they just don't even see it coming. It just hits them from the side, and they're like, oh, we were supposed to sell books directly to people?
And your job is to be paranoid, constantly question the status quo. That's kind of what helped the company evolve for us. Like, if we had just stuck with games until now, I don't think we'd be here today, right? Because our reaction was, well, yeah, games were great, and games are something that certain brands will buy, but what will every brand buy, right? We wanted to increase our customer pool, and this came from just observing and understanding that the behavior changes here, and looking at actual other apps, so to-do list apps. By nature, retention is built into it. You have to use it every day. It's just what it is. But a game developer has to go, ooh, how do I make it sticky? How do I do all this other stuff to make it so that people want to play it every day? But at the end of the day, just look for things that are behavioral habits that are actually very daily in nature.
And what do you think of these apps where people are getting paid to lose weight, or they put like because it is another behavioral dynamic where I think you give $100 and you get it back if you go to the gym each time. Gym Pact.
Yeah, we're actually integrating that app as well. Yeah.
Right. So what do you think of this sort of monetary gambling, semi-reward gambling kind of apps?
So for behaviors that are usually something that people don't naturally want to do, it sometimes is effective, right? So sometimes, motivating yourself to work out every day is not exactly something that you're like jumping for joy every morning to do, right? Taking out the trash is another. For kids, brushing your teeth, again, building habits. These are things that I think there's some cases where it is effective, but again, and this has just been proven many, many, many times, the serendipitous reward is more effective, right?
It's just Skinner, isn't it? Like somebody, if you're getting some consistent reward, you get $1 every time you come. That's one thing, but to get a variable, like every other time you come, or the third time, it's much more powerful.
But it also, the expected one taps into a part of your brain that's very transactional, right? So it's something that actually turns you into something that goes, well, okay, so I went to the gym, blah, 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 and then I go to the gym 5 times, I get a $5 reward. I go to the gym 10 times, I get a $10 reward. Like human beings are very good at pegging these things and demanding what we never really thought we were going to get in the first place. These are things that, again, once you peg it that way, ends up being the result. So it's very dangerous if you aren't able to be flexible and actually realize that sometimes it's tempting to just do the whole short-term thing. Let me just pay you to do something. Let me just pay you to do something. That happened quite a bit. But the thing is, that's not long-term. There is no affinity. I'm not doing this because I want to. I'm doing it for some other random disjointed incentive. And that's very, very dangerous. In fact, that's happening a lot in this industry right now. And I have to basically make a plea and realize that you guys have to realize that you're pissing in the pool. You're actually making the engagement overall as numbers very moot. Like the numbers aren't valid when something isn't incentivized.
What are you referring to exactly?
Getting paid to do things like engage with brands. So getting paid to like a page, like the modern version is like a page, watch a video, tweet about us, rank me in the App Store, right? These are things that don't necessarily, they're not supposed to be incentivized, but they are.
And it's actually against the terms of service. If you can't pay people to give ratings, but people
on Android, anything flies.
Android, anything flies.
Yeah. But on Apple, of course, Apple's been trying to, they got rid of App Gratis. They kind of made sure that, a good chunk of the ecosystem wasn't just incentivized.
Was that a good move to get rid of App Gratis? I thought that was kind of puzzling because they were just paying to give exposure to apps. Like, why can't I pay for installs? What was you think their motivation?
I don't know exactly what it was, right? Because I think it was a lot of layers that just wasn't being revealed, and this was between them and them. But I think on a general sense, the notion of me paying to manipulate is something that shouldn't be the case in the first place. It's actually more solving for a dysfunction in the ecosystem. What people were trying to solve for is the App Store ranking list, right? It was just a reaction to the fact that that list was so powerful but flawed. So the thing is, that's not a business, right? That's what, that, you have to realize this. Just as an entrepreneur, you look at this and go, okay, I'm actually making money off of fixing some stupid random flaw in some list, right? And a hack. And you're not going to build a sustainable business off of fixing a hack, right?
The hack is, I have a new app, I want to be in the top 10.
Yes.
So somebody will pay $100,000 to get in the top 10.
Exactly.
But then their app is like, it's like pouring gasoline on a log.
Yeah.
It's like the app isn't that good anyway. It can earn its way to the top.
Pouring gasoline on a damp log or something. I mean,
on wet leaves.
Wet leaves, yeah. So it's like pretty. You can't put, there's only so much lipstick you can put on that paint, right? So I think that what's interesting is good content always continues to succeed. I think you have this addiction to being featured in the App Store. Again, distribution and getting your app noticed is still a very big problem, but that naturally happens in a market that becomes crowded.
Yeah.
Markets are markets. They have their dynamics.
But if you bought iAds as an example to promote your ad and you moved up the app ranking, Apple wouldn't mind.
No, because obviously they make money off of it.
So that was my problem. I felt it was very much like an antitrust kind of a thing. And I think if they get an antitrust investigation, that should be at the top of the list, because if I had a magazine and you bought the back cover, and by the nature of buying the back cover, you became, a top 10 app. Okay, well, that's the nature of advertising. I mean, if you bought AdMob, you could do that as well. If you bought your service, you could do that as well, right?
Yes. I mean, no, we don't actually do app installs. We don't actually.
Well, what if I say you get a free app and you put your email address?
We don't do that.
Why not?
Because we just don't want to play in that arena. In fact,
it's more money?
Well, that and like you said, a lot of the reputation is really not that clean. And then on top of all that, we're about helping developers, right? So the whole idea is, and I actually believe that when you kind of take money from within the same ecosystem, so in that whole ecosystem is like developers pay developers, right? It's the same money in the same pool, right? And so it's kind of like you're just sloshing around a lot of urine, right? But the whole thing is, how do we add to it, right? How do we combine two pools, right? How do we make everything better? And so that's why I looked at advertising, and I looked at the oodles of money that are just sitting there, and I looked at developers and the oodles of money that's sitting there too. But I think by marrying those two and doing it in a very genuine way, you create something that's better for everyone. That's the ecosystem. It's the world that's what's the new creation that we want to bring out to. We don't want to just iterate on the same things over and over again.
All right, listen, you've been very honest, Brian. It's a great story. But this is, to your own admission, a simple, clever idea that when you told it to people, they said, why doesn't it exist already? You're this Mensa guy, you got 150 IQ, this can't be the complete vision. There's got to be more. What's as we close up the program here.
Yeah.
5 years from now, when we look at Keep, what are we going to see? Is it just going to be a bigger network, or is there some bigger grand scheme here? Give us a little bit of a hint of the roadmap.
So what I'll say is we're a moments company, right? So we understand that now consumers consume in series of moments, right? So I almost evoke my phone. So if I'm hungry, I'm going to use the Seamless app. If I'm going to work out, I'm going to use my exercise app or whatever it may be, right? So it's always going to be now a series of moments. And as a moments company, as we own more, and through rewards, we're doing that right now. But there may be other ways that we'll do it in the future. As we own more, we will become the most important mobile company on the planet, right? Understanding that we can own all the moments that exist in people's daily lives.
You think you're going to be the most important mobile company on the planet?
Absolutely, because as you become a part of everybody's daily lives, and this is again through many ways. Companies, what's the most important mobile company right now?
Well, I guess you could say the hardware or the operating system, or you could say an app.
Apple, Google, right?
So logic would say Apple and Google are the two biggest players.
So they own moments by
Windows.
creating the device, right? They
Correct.
own moments by creating the OS.
Right.
I'm owning moments by creating engagement mechanisms that let people become a part of it. So
Right.
you have to, when you look at the whole vision, it's like our mission is to own every single moment. The vision is to make those moments matter, right? And we're making them matter right now through rewarding, through helping brands be a part of it. But there's all this value in the moment that a lot of people haven't seen yet, and we're just unlocking it one after another.
So there's going to be some other thing that could happen in that moment.
Could be,
Yeah.
or that moment could lead to other things. So now that we know more about what you are doing and what is exact.